Hi, and welcome back to the VoiceFirst Roundtable, Season 2, Episode 6. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of a company called Score Publishing based here in Nashville, Tennessee. The VoiceFirst Roundtable is our ongoing interview show, half an hour, one-on-one, where we speak to a variety of leaders and pioneers across this vast landscape of voice technology and conversational AI. We are now halfway through Season 2. Starting on the back half, and we are thrilled to be joined by Steve Ardire. Steve, say hello.
Thank you, Bradley. I'm Steve Ardire. I operate.
I mispronounced it right off the bat. So that's Ardire.
That's okay. Ardire. It's a hard E at the end. Yes.
Okay.
Hard E at the end. Right. So great. Great to do this. It's been a few months since I've done a podcast. I'm very active in the speaking circuit. But if you go to my website, which I'll include a link, but I'll verbalize, it's forcemultipliersteveardire.com. On the events list, there were 4 upcoming events that I was targeted to do, and I just put a little notation, postponed due to COVID-19. So I have, like, in red on my events list, a number of events: a healthcare event, AI Showbiz, which is an online event for AI and entertainment, a HR event, a EdTech event. So a nice little sprinkling, but it is what it is, and you just got to play through. Hopefully things will, be more stabilized with the flattening of the COVID-19 curve by the fall. So at any rate, a little bit about me, if you want to give me, I can give you a quick capsule on what I do. So I've been advising startups for 25 years, the last 7 squarely in the AI space, in multiple areas, everything from enterprise AI. I've kind of moved up the stack from, the plumbing side of things up to, applications in different spaces, in the healthcare space, in HR and in tech and entertainment. So a whole sprinkling of verticals. And I typically lock on to early stage AI software startups. So I have an affinity for underappreciated, underestimated underdog startups, where I can come in and give them a turnkey deliverable, which is rare for advisors. I can come in and help shape their business strategy, product market fit, put together their pitch, get it funded. So these are typically anywhere from, some pre-seed, but typically, seed stage from 1 to, 3 million funding. And then get to the fun part, which is operationalizing the tactical execution, which is go to market, for customer engagement and partnerships.
Very cool. So you're a busy man.
Very busy, and typically it's interesting. I should have done this earlier in my career, but about 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, I decided, my wife has horses. She has a stable of horses, less now. So I decided to put together a stable of AI startup, parse my time across, anywhere from 6 to 8. And some of them were more intense gigs. Other ones were just, maybe 4 to 8 hours a month. And it was interesting because, that's really how the VCs play the game. It's a numbers game, and, you want horses that, are going to win, place, or show. And that's the way it is. No matter how you slice it, 9 out of 10 software startups, whether they're AI or not, fail to numerous reasons. So, you try to get a little more discerning and, with the experience, picking the right horses. But the space that I'm in is the toughest one because you're not quite there. You may have some, early adopter traction. You've got to get, to a commercial viable product. It's difficult, but the good news is that today, with open source cloud services, the whole cost of standing up, software startups, if you have a compelling application, that's kind of outside the gun sights of the big players, and you can field it. You can field your deployment pretty smartly. You have a much better chance. So my new mantra that is even recalibrated is, I think, for a lot of AI startups, especially in the enterprise AI space, using conversational AI. And I'll give you an example of one that I'm doing as a co-CEO and co-founder. You have a great chance to do it with no more than 5 million in funding, get to 5 million in sales, and you've got a 25 million, exit strategy if you execute smartly.
Yeah, excellent. So, and I like the horse metaphor.
The horse analogy.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to go with that. So
go with it. Yeah.
So
yeah.
With your you've interacted with a lot of companies, and you talked about how you sort of continued to sharpen your own framework for how you evaluate them and think about them. What are some of the criteria that maybe makes you think one startup or another is a secretariat rather than like another Mr. Ed?
Yes. So the number one criteria is your team. In fact, VCs put a weighting of 70% criteria on your team. Now, the interesting thing about it is that, outside, in rural areas like where you are, well, you're not really rural, but off the beaten path, the big cities, right? Where you have the preponderance. I don't really get a lot of funding from, I think the Silicon Valley bloom is off the roads. And there's a lot of, flyover country areas, wherever you have a university or it doesn't need, you've got a viable ecosystem to springboard. And, but the key thing is recruiting the right team. And I'll give you a tangible example rather than talking in the abstract. So the timing I think is propitious, but we're standing up a telebehavioral health software as a service called signalactionai.com. And it's all targeted for AI, healthcare, and human services for good. Now we didn't really, we had this thing going a few months ago before the COVID-19, but the feedback and the timing couldn't be better because, the problem sets are going to be manifest. So we're targeting substance use and abuse, opioid addiction. And then the other bucket is the mental health, depression, suicide. For most people don't realize the enormity of the problem. The economic impact of addiction and mental illness, globally is nearly $1 trillion a year. 200 people a day die from opioid addiction. 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness and mental health issues, and it's going to increase now because of the pandemic issues, right? So that's going to bump up illnesses. It also includes children with higher, I didn't believe this statistics, 1 in 6 youth, age 16 to 17 is mental, disorder. So depression now will be a leading, cause of disability. So what we're trying to do is address through telebehavioral, using machine intelligence to help users overcome obstacles, to leading a healthier, happier life. So it's conversational interface, like you do at VoiceCon and so forth, is just one ingredient of that. But you need the other ingredients that we're interleaving into the product mix that tap into patient behavioral pattern recognition, empathy, bidirectional patient interaction, the ability to glean real-time vital sign detection, have a semantic patient modeling component, and then, the metrics on the trend analysis and reporting. So we're just in the early stages of standing up a proof of concept in May, and then deploy so the sequences is after that you deployed an MVP with early adopters, targeting rural hospitals, and clinics, because those are the underserved markets. And we have a killer team. So it comes back to the team, very lean as far as, the co-founders, but we have a really impressive list of advisors in healthcare, in patient experience, in design strategy. So we're feeling pretty good about it.
So that dovetails pretty well with a question for you. So
Mm-hmm.
you interact with such breadth of companies,
Mm-hmm.
and you're interacting with them at such a deep and integrated level. As you know, the Project Voice series, we have this portfolio of events that we do, and it involves the intersection of different verticals and voice technology and the AI that sort of sits underneath it. My question for you is, you just mentioned a healthcare example that you're working with. Share with me your thoughts on what is the one vertical, whether it's healthcare, whether it's banking, whether it's publishing, whether it's automotive, whether it's hospitality, what's the one area of our life where we're going to see the most benefit from AI first?
So the most benefit from AI, the whole voice interface, it's the most natural interface. That's, whether it's applied for customer service or this telehealth example that I just cited, it's great today with, on the consumer side where you have your, Alexa or Google Home or whatever to be kind of like a Q&A service to where you don't have to, go and type in your query to Google, whatever. You can get your answer. But let me frame it this way. Every credible AI does the who, what, why, when, and how, but not the why. And that's the holy grail out there. Why, is causal reasoning or common sense. And none of the players, including Google, Amazon, and other impressive startups have cracked that. There's no meaning in the conversation. So in order to have really to thread this in terms of AI really coming into a useful assistant. I mean, that's why I talk most of my, you can't see it on the website, but I talk, my number one topic is augmented intelligence for the future of work. And the simple definition of that, Bradley, is humans working with machines. So what the machines are doing is, whatever work is procedural, whether it's legal work, in financial, in customer, whatever can be codified, workflow, procedural work, that, I have one of my favorite go-to quotes is alluding to Peter Drucker's thinking: efficiency should be delegated to machines while effectiveness should be a human pursuit. So what this is going to mean is that going forward, when we get more, cracking the causal analysis and reasoning, as far as conversational AI, you need the meaning-based, and it needs to have deep multi-turn conversations, because that's, most chatbots today are very narrow, and if you get out of that narrow domain, they suck, period. So you need to have engines that can, switch, context like humans do seamlessly with this, and maintain contextual associations. So once that is, and we're getting closer, this is, there's a lot of, like I said, the big players obviously are cranking, hard on this, but there's still some cleverness and, where I play in startups that can also crack it. The other component I want to mention is that or to have, to really bring it to fruition, is that you need emotional intelligence, which we're building into Signal Action AI. So what emotional intelligence allows you to do is have the chatbot or lifelike, if you have a lifelike avatar deployed with it, you need to have empathy, and that's the other ingredient. So I really see three components: it's the conversational, it's the behavioral, okay, and the emotional. And if you thread those together, you've got a really good chance to crack the problem.
No, that's really interesting insight. I think going back to your your healthcare example, in addition to those things that you laid out, I just think there's some of these industries where there's regulatory issues that get in the way of being able to pursue those three domains that you just put forth. And, with healthcare in particular, I think it's really fascinating to see right now the willingness here in the United States and probably elsewhere as well to dispense with some of the regulation around how remote healthcare, telehealthcare, whatever word's most appropriate, is administered. And now we're seeing, hey, the shackles are loose, and we can do what we really want to do here. I think it's kind of an exciting environment to be in, from a voice and AI, anything to do with AI perspective, where you're dealing with data and want to communicate with patients remotely. Because my interpretation as a person sitting on the sidelines, not involved in that industry in any way, is that it looks like the road is clear.
It is, because basically, no matter, even with this current pandemic, I think it's really changing, and that's why you're seeing, right? I just read a statistic about how, internet speeds have been throttled in most of the cities across the country, right? And everybody's like, more on Zoom like we are today and so forth. But yeah, this is really I've been doing remote work for 20 years. So when I see people post on tips for remote work, I just kind of smile and move on. But you're going to really see this whole change of whatever market, whether it be in health or financial services, and that's going to be the new modality. And I think that's one of the the upsides out of this calamity that we have is I'm a big fan. I've been doing the gig economy before it had that cool, phraseology for a long time, but you're starting to see really moving up the scale to where, people don't want to just be, working for HP or IBM or something, right? If they have what it takes, they can, enter the gig economy as a acting, VP of marketing, or an acting CFO. You're going to see more of that. And I really think that from a startup perspective, Bradley, this is great. You're going to have more talent, that wants to come, to do, engagements, virtual engagements, and be a contributing component, profit from that, and then move on to the next thing. And it isn't just the millennials. I'm a baby boomer, and I've never been busier in my whole career.
No, that's great. This is really, really good insight. I'm speaking to Steve Ardire. I'll get that pronounced correctly now. On the VoiceFirst Roundtable. Steve, I want to conclude. We sort of covered some of the COVID-19 stuff. I want to conclude by asking you just a simple question on what do you hope that we see from this voice tech, anywhere in the landscape, from voice tech all the way through the AI, any aspect of the AI underneath it. What do you hope that we see as some of the developments in this area by the time the end of the year rolls around? Is there anything in particular that you're watching that you hope comes to pass? Share with me your thoughts on, you mentioned Alexa, Google Assistant, some of these mainstream voice assistants. Where do you think we'll be by the end of the year? What are you hopeful to see?
So I think, in many respects, it's really going to be kind of a refreshing cleansing of sorts to say, yes, we're still executing, with what we, for this particular behavioral health startup. If you've got the right stuff, it all comes down to, nailing your product market fit and knowing how to execute off that. I like it in terms of the kind of more of a leveling of the playing field to where you can see if you've got the right substance as an underdog, and you can come to market, close deals and start getting traction. You don't need to have there's going to be a lot of startups that are overfunded, 50, $100 million, where it's more marketing hype and BS than it is real product substance. That's what I see as. So it's sort of like, it's kind of like recalibrating, leveling the playing field here. And it's really going to put a big hurt on a lot of I don't get any funding through, I go to micro VCs. I think most of the big VCs, they're models, and that's what it is. Augmented intelligence, AI isn't killing jobs, it's killing business models. And I think that's a good thing, because there's too much hype and inflation within VC overfunded startup names. And it's going to really, come down to more of what we used to have, meritocracy and then executing smartly. So that's my takeaway.
Excellent. Yeah. Steve, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for taking some time to share not just your experience, but your expertise with me and the audience as well. It's greatly appreciated.
My pleasure, Bradley. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
You too. For the VoiceFirst Roundtable, Season 2, Episode 6. Thank you for listening, watching if you're watching on YouTube. Until next time.